Based on the hit Warner Brothers horror franchise, The Conjuring Beyond Fear takes Halloween Haunt at Kings Island well beyond the typical haunted house. But how are guests really reacting? In this episode of Tower Topics, we break down the highs, the lows, and everything in between, straight from the reviews.
He's Don. I'm Ryan. This is Tower Topics.
Tower Topics. It's available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and stay up to date with all things Kings Island. And on this episode, we're going to do a sentiment review about, what guests really thought about the Conjuring at Kings Island. Ryan, you've been through it multiple times, and so we'll see at the end of the sentiment report, whether you agree or disagree with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been through it 3 times, and I'll let you know what I think. And I've not thoroughly looked at this stuff. But before we get started, this is a similar methodology to, when we ranked the haunted houses and people didn't seem like they had a great understanding of where we were getting our information from. So just give us the high level view of what the sentiment report is and what kind of methodology it uses to get this information.
Brands, whether you're an amusement theme park, sports team, your Wendy's or McDonald's, whatever, you pull sentiment reports. There's different monitoring services that will allow you to do that. So, you put in the things that you're looking for. You ask, what are people saying about this? And it'll compile it for you. So this is where this gets pulled from. It's not what Ryan thinks. It's not what Don thinks. It's what those that have, whether you posted something on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Yelp, TripAdvisor, any of those kind of things, fan forums, any of that, it's going to pull that information from there and compile it into one general report for you. So it's going to do an overview and say, guests felt this way about this, guests felt that way about this. So it's pretty thorough, it's pretty accurate. And this is something that I'm pretty sure that if we were to show this to people at Kings Island on the brand marketing team, they would say it aligns with what they're hearing.
Yeah. And I'll start with the positives because I'm the positive one of us too. Remember that, everybody.
You jumped ahead again.
How?
You can't. Yeah, I got to do the overview before you get to that.
I thought that was the overview.
No. We were just, because you threw in about how we got this.
Okay. Well,
so I'll go ahead and give the overview then. So I stopped. So I'll say before we get into it, here's the kind of an overview.
Okay, just go ahead.
All right, kind of an overview. The Conjuring Beyond Fear at Kings Island received overwhelmingly positive feedback during the 2025 Halloween Haunt season. Guests consistently praised its immersive, interactive experience and high production quality, making it a standout attraction of the season at the park. However, certain aspects, they've drawn some criticism, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, and we're going to start with the positives, and I'll read these because I'm the more positive one of us too. That's
what I hear.
Yeah, as the sentiment report. Okay, so positive sentiments. So these are the strengths that the guests frequently highlighted. So interactive experience. So unlike traditional haunted houses, visitors actively participated in the storyline by handling props, moving through the rooms in small groups, and interacting with actors. The level of engagement sets the attraction apart. The high production quality. Reviewers compared the maze favorably to major attractions like Universal's Halloween Horror Nights, noting Hollywood-level sets, props, and special effects. Effective scares. Attendees praised the frequency and intensity of the scares, stating that the immersive and interactive format excites genuine reactions, even from seasoned haunted house veterans. Faithfulness to the films. Fans of the Conjuring franchise appreciated the inclusion of iconic characters and scenes, which enhance the authenticity and thrill of the experience. Smaller group size. Reduced group sizes created a more intimate and personalized experience, increasing the effectiveness of scares and overall immersion.
And, moving on to the negative sentiment, despite its popularity, there were some areas that did draw some criticism, starting with the extra cost. The attraction requires a separate ticket, which some visitors felt was unexpectedly high or not clearly communicated by Kings Island. The crowd and logistical challenges, on busy nights, the overcrowding, it led to a diminished experience quality. They felt they were getting rushed through a little bit, overcrowded rooms, and audio issues. Some guests reported difficulty hearing actors over sound effects. Large groups, which surprised me a little bit because normally they were running through, the same type size groups, but I guess at times they weren't. But excessive size groups or group sizes occasionally undermined the immersive experience, the forced interactivity. A few guests felt that interactive elements seemed staged or prompted rather than natural parts of the storyline. Staff interactions drew criticism. Isolated incidents of negative staff encounters affected the experience for certain groups. But overall, pretty highly positive.
Yeah. So the conclusion is that it's widely regarded as a premier attraction at Kings Island's 2025 Halloween Haunt.
And its interactive format, the high production values, those were highly noted. And the alignment with the popular film franchise, made it a highlight for most visitors. I think that was something that showed up a lot in the report, was just, how it stayed true to the Conjuring storyline. I've never seen the Conjuring, the movies. It was on, I saw it, I think it was Netflix or something. I was scrolling through my TV looking for things the other night, and, there was, the movies were right there, and I thought, should I watch it? But I didn't. But it was, very, very well received.
Yeah, prospective guests should also consider that the additional ticket costs and be mindful that high attendance may affect the intimacy and flow of the experience.
Yeah. So Ryan, what do you think? I mean, was this sentiment report, does it align with your thought process? After you've experienced it, you said what, 3 times?
I've done it 3 times. So I'll say I think The Conjuring it's like top 5, one of my favorite things Kings Island's ever done. And I want to give full credit to them. And I understand, like, you're going to get somebody come back, well, it's Plague Productions, not Kings Island. Kings Island wrote the check. Kings Island took the risk. It's Kings Island as far as a guest is concerned. So the positive things, I've talked a lot about the positives. And I recommend this to everybody. I do want to address some of the negatives though. Because a lot of times we've been hearing these things, like people feel like they were rushed through and stuff. I heard that a lot, and it's funny because I got in line for it, and I was gonna wait. I was just gonna do it on my own, and I was like, okay, I'm tired of waiting. And I saw a friend of mine, so I got out of line. My friend who got out of line, or who got out of the maze, said, "Man, they really rushed us through," and other people were saying that too. And you text me saying, "I'm hearing people are saying they're being rushed through," like right when he's saying that. So you get word pretty quickly. But I did it a couple times after hearing that, and I will say that there are certain elements that definitely suffered because of that. Number one is, for those of you who've done it, spoiler alert, the birthday scene. It seems like it was, you spend a lot of time in that room, and then something happens, you're supposed to hide. Instead, you go in there and they have you sing happy birthday, and while you're singing happy birthday, the actor, I don't want to call him a scare actor because I feel like they're a little bit above that, but they say, you hide under the table, you hide behind the curtains, and you're going to come with me. So that whole experience was kind of ruined. Also, there's the first time I did it, there's that crawling section and everybody crawled. The second time, me and another person were chosen to crawl and everybody else did the bypass. And the third time, nobody crawled. I don't think it's a big deal. I didn't think the crawling thing was all that great, but it's definitely something. And to their credit, they had to do something. Like the timed reentry and stuff, that was a step in the right direction, but they were just not putting through people fast enough to make this work.
What about staff interactions? That came up as a negative, that there were times that the interactions weren't, real positive with those working the attraction. It doesn't specify whether they're talking about the actors or they're talking about, those at the entrance or the exit or whatever of the attraction. But I do know at times, there's the 16 or 17-year-old haunt, it's a power trip for them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that comes shining through in situations like this. But what has your experience been with that?
Oh, positive across the board.
Okay.
I did see somebody on Facebook say that, they warn you that they can lightly touch you, but the girl shoved me. The girl did not shove that person. I mean, come on. the only reason that they have that disclosure, I think, is because you're in such small quarters at points where the actor is gonna brush up against you, and there's a point where you're supposed to hold hands and stuff. So there is physical interactivity. The people who were working the front, it's usually lifeguards, just like it has been for years for the operations of these mazes. Always completely polite, no issues whatsoever. I think that in a lot of cases, you get people that maybe waited 90 minutes for this thing and they have to take it out on somebody. So they throw in there like, oh, also the person was rude, or, I didn't experience anything like that. I'm not doubting that it happens from time to time. You're right. Sometimes it's a 16, 17-year-old that's on a power trip, but I don't buy that was a widespread thing.
No, and it said that it was, it wasn't, a big deal, with that. It was isolated cases, with it. But overall, it's good to see that it especially when guests are paying for this, I think the sentiment, and the negatives might be a little different if it was free to go through it. People are going to be a little more critical. So to get this kind of a sentiment report, a high score like this, being highly positive, when guests are paying extra to do it, I think that is a really good thing for Kings Island.
I think so too. Like I said, hats off to them. I thought it would, the first time I went through, I'm me, I'm an afterglow kind of guy. I go through the first time and I was like, that's the most amazing thing that's ever happened. And I went through it and it's just like, I just couldn't stop thinking about it the rest of the night.
Yeah.
And then I
remember how excited you were about it. I mean, you sent me a text message after you went through and said, this was awesome. And you did Order of the Dragon too. I mean, you were really positive about that, and very excited about that. And, again, I think, adding the mazes of these two, the caliber of these two, is a step in the right direction for Kings Island. And now you hope is you've got these two, you've got this partnership, you're working with Plague Productions, and that they can come in and do a third one next year, to retire one of the older ones, the returning mazes. And the next year they add another one. Now you've got 4, and if you cycle through that way, I think you start to really build toward a really high quality event, what everybody hopes on, could be. Everyone has said it should be like Universal. Well, these are steps in the right direction to get to that point.
So the budget for Conjuring is nothing like Universal, but dare I say the execution was better than anything I've seen at Universal. Universal is a conga line. Yeah. Beautiful sets, great actors, lighting, no expense spared, but it's a conga line. This is the part where everybody plays a part. They mentioned the forced interaction. I understand that, here, hold this, or here, you do this. And I saw people like being afraid to touch stuff or whatever. Unfortunately, if you're going to have this experience, if you don't want to be interactive, it's not the experience for you. They're not asking a lot of you, but here's a friend of mine actually pointed this out the other day. So Cedar Point has 6 mazes and so do the rest of them. Does Kings Island have 6 now, not including the Conjuring? So you
have Order of the Dragon.
Yep. Cornstalkers.
Killmart. Cornered. Killmart. Hotel St. Michelle.
Alien Abyss and Slaughterhouse. Okay, so that's 6.
Yeah.
They pointed out a good thing. All the other parks have 6 mazes. That's not the Conjuring. We lost one because they took out Madame Fatales for the Conjuring. And their theory was that Kings Island didn't have time to design and build a maze. So that's why they turned to Plague Productions to do Order of the Dragon. So I hope that's wrong. And I hope that the intention is to make better mazes.
I believe, Ryan, that the intention was to bring Plague Productions in to elevate the experience, and go beyond just the Conjuring and do a second one, and have 2 really good ones, especially since they were introducing for the first time that you had to pay to do these. You had to give, you couldn't charge for the same things you've rolled out for years and just have the Conjuring be the only thing that you did. So you had to do something different. But I really do think that they, would like to elevate the experience. They know that it's been lacking in recent years in terms of the level of what the mazes have been. Do you like the word mazes or houses?
Mazes is the industry term, so that's what I stick with typically.
Okay. Okay. But it's good to see, and I really do feel that if Haunt comes back next year, and we have to throw that out there, it's not a given because we've
Mhm.
seen different things get pulled after they've been announced as happening. Winterfest, King's Dominion, an
Mhm.
example, or are they going to revamp the whole Halloween event? Are they going to take? And I'm sure they're evaluating everything. Any smart business is going to do that. You're going to look at what can we do better? Should we change it? What do guests really want? All those kind of things. But saying Haunt, comes back, and I would say it's highly likely that it's going to be back.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's going in the right direction. I think you will see a third maze by Plague Productions next year. Something that's currently there will be. I'm not going to say they're going to add another maze. They'll just replace an existing one, and I don't think you need to add one. I mean, it's a 6-hour event anyway. So
6
six
is
is a
their
good.
number from what
Yeah,
I
six.
from what
Yeah,
I've heard
six.
for
Yeah,
years.
6 is a really good number. They tried to have more than that before. Um, they've had 9, 10, different mazes. When they had like Trail of Terror, and the train was one, and everything. So they've had more, but it works best, I think, with 5 or 6 really good ones than 8, 9, 10 average at best ones. So I think they're going in the right direction with it. I think that it looked really good around the park. There's, I've heard, you know, I've seen online, and I've had people tell me that there's not as much of the Halloween decor and everything around the park as there used to be. No, there's not. But what is out there, far more polished than it's ever been. They're just not taking those skeletons that you can buy at Walmart, and sticking them on buildings everywhere and stuff. It's a much more polished looking event than it was 10, 15 years ago, I think. What they have, it looks impressive. Great photo ops around the park with the different props that they have out there. So I think that they're really in a good place to keep elevating the haunt experience. I think they did that this year, even though it cost money to do these mazes. A lot of negative sentiment about that. But at the end of the day, take out the fact that you had to pay to do the mazes. Overall, the maze experience was better this year than it's been ever.
Okay, can I rewind back to touch on a point that you made toward the beginning of your point? You said they couldn't just charge for the same thing. The other parks did, like
They did, and it
Cedar.
didn't work.
Well, Cedar Point had long lines for their haunted houses, from what I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah. They had better. Yeah, they were more. Well, it's a different situation there too, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
the
yeah.
people are traveling further to get there. They stay overnight. They probably go like on a Friday night. They're back there for a little bit on Saturday. We're talking the majority. We're
Mhm.
not talking about those that are just going to get their coaster rides in. We're talking about those that are going for the Halloween experience. Um, it's a different thing, and they're traveling further away to get there. They're going to want to do the mazes. It's not like they live 5 minutes from the park, 10 minutes from the park, and it's like going to the mall. For a lot of Kings Island guests, they're there so often, that they don't have to do the mazes. They can have a good time. They're going to meet up with friends or whatever, have a few meals and stuff, stay there for 20 minutes, and get their meal and go home, or maybe even only have a 2 or 3 hour night there and they go home. Cedar Point, you're pretty much there for the duration. When you get
Mhm.
there, if you go on a Saturday or, a Sunday, um, it's not something where if you stand up by the turnstiles, you're not going to see like it is at Kings Island, where throughout the day, people are coming and going. After about 12:30, 1 o'clock, it's you're not seeing people leaving. I mean, they're in the park. That's
Right.
what it is. They're there for the duration. But you got the sentiment chart up for the Conjuring
Mhm.
Beyond Fear, and this is kind of you see the green is the the real positive stuff, and there's a lot of green there, and that's a good thing if you're Kings Island.
Yeah, and also you have to like weigh these things too, because uh, imagine if I made wrote this paragraph on Facebook and it picked it up. Um, The Conjuring Beyond Fear had amazing quality, and the actors were great. I love the films, and I saw all the characters that I wanted to see, and it was so scary. Um, I didn't really like having to look under the tablecloth because I was too scared, and it's a bummer that it cost $30, but I really liked it. Um, yeah, something like that. That's like 90% positive, but it's also reflective of what you're seeing here too. So
Yes.
I don't think that the forced interactivity. I think that that's maybe people are saying like they asked me to throw holy water on the nun, and I was scared to do it because that would come up as negative sentiment. I
Yeah.
mean, at least through most methodology, it would.
Yeah.
The
And those
staff
bottom
interactivity
two.
is
Yeah, those
huge.
bottom two are really good. If you're Kings Island, you love seeing, how much green there is when you're talking about the production quality and the interactive experience. You love seeing that. So, really good job on that. You know, I could have pulled a report for Order of the Dragon too, but I think we would have seen a lot of the same kind of things where, everybody, really liked the production quality, and it
Mhm.
was much better than, people are going to say it was much better than the existing mazes and that. So, but, just overall, it was, you got to factor in too how many people were going to be against the cost to do it. And some
Mhm.
nights it was up to $40 to do it. That heavily weighs into the negativity, and it
Mhm.
still was overwhelmingly positive for Kings Island with the sentiment report.
Yeah. Again, one of my favorite things Kings Island's on, at least in a long time. You know, I can't speak the praises. Now, I will say this. I don't think I've said this on the show. Um, but when the maze was $15, I bought the all season thing, but I was thinking when I did it the first night, it was $15. Well worth $15. And then the Saturday nights it was $20. And I was like, you know what? It's a little more expensive, but it's Saturday. Okay. When they're charging as much as $40, I'm wondering what the sentiment's going to look like once they do that for an entire season next year.
It'll
Because
change. It'll change. And plus, being back for a second year,
mhm,
not new, not the first time you did it, that changes sentiment too. Like if you were to do a sentiment report about Banshee in 2014 and you do one again for 2025, it's not going to be the same, as it was
yeah,
back then. So a lot of it has to do with newness as well.
yeah,
But you got to feel if you're Kings Island, and Six Flags, that you made the right call by giving Kings Island the Conjuring Beyond Fear.
that and Order of the Dragon. It's
Mhm.
funny because I go to the park frequently with my friend Alex, who's a member here. Hi, Alex. And he and I both agreed, like, we spent 100. We spent the high end, the highest possible price on the express, along with one Conjuring per visit, and we're like, I don't even care. I could have gotten it for 62 days before. It was well worth the $100. And we're that season demographic that shows up dozens of times per season, and we're willing to throw money at
Yeah.
it. So so I'm glad it's there. I think it's so cool. As of this episode dropping, you've got the rest of this weekend. This is dropping on Halloween. um
Yes,
no
you got tonight, if you're listening at this, to this episode as it drops, you've got Saturday, and that's it, because there is no haunt on the Sunday. Park closes at 7.
Yeah, it's the end of Haunt on Saturday, but I would highly encourage you to go out and do it, mainly because we don't know what the future is going to look like. It could be the exact same thing next year. There's also a non-zero possibility that this becomes just a normal maze that you walk through, which would not be the same
No,
experience.
I think it worst case scenario, they may drop charging for the other mazes, and this will
Mhm.
be something like, that upcharge attraction like Slingshot was, Extreme Skyflyer was. It'll be something like that.
I'd be okay with that, but I want to pay for the mazes simply because if Order of the Dragon is what we're going to get for $10, then I want to give them my money to do things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, but they
All
got to
right.
work at a lot of work to do at the other parks too, to get everybody kind of under the same kind of game plan here. So if you're going from park to park, those that might visit those 40 parks that come with your gold season pass, uh, you know,
Go.
And speaking of season pass, after days of being bombarded with text and mobile app alerts, emails, and the park making social media posts, shouting from the rooftops, October 26th was the final chance. That was the deadline. All those, being able to get all those parks was going to go away. But here we are again, yet with another Gold Pass extension. So Kings Island says now that this is the final extension. We've seen that movie before. To get a 2026 Gold Pass and 40 plus parks, this offer said to be ending November 3rd. So I ask you, Ryan, buy or sell? Is this really the final extension?
I don't know. I don't know because they have to cut it off at some point for the sale. But we've talked about this with gold passes and stuff. It's going to be so confusing that a gold pass you buy on October 1st gets you into Cedar Point, but the one you buy on November 15th does not. So what do? They've dug themselves a hole.
So you can't say buy or sell. You don't know, do you?
No, I'm not confident that this is not the last extension. They might drop the marketing, but keep the deal.
Okay, so you're going to sell that. This one we'll see it roll past November 3rd, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah,
all the park add-ons are still going to be included going into what they call the holiday sales period, November and December.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that.
Okay. I will sell too, that I do think that there'll be another extension with this.
Yeah.
But you have an integrity issue when you continue to keep putting it out there. This is it. Last chance. You got till midnight. They got the countdowns on the website and everything. You can do that once and have like a 3-day extension a couple times a year. You can't do it every single time. I mean, how many extensions have we had now?
3 or 4, I want to say. It was supposed to end Labor Day. Here it is, October 29th when we're recording this.
Yeah, but nobody believes it now when you say this is it. There's no you've ruined the urgency you try to create by saying deadline offer ends at midnight. There is no more urgency with that. Everybody knows, wake up tomorrow morning and it'll still be there. And I know a lot of people that when it was in the that first one on sale, throughout August, and into September, it was supposed to end on Labor Day, and everybody's like, I gotta get I'll wait. I don't think they're going to do it, and they didn't. So the price may go up a little bit, but I think they're still going to continue to add all those 40 plus parks that they currently have today.
And expect it again next year. Also, footnote, the Express Pass season long thing that I bought that sold out at $60, and then it was off sale for about 6 hours, and it was on sale again for $80. Then it was off sale for about an hour, then it went to $100.
Yeah. So I don't, if the product sold out, the product should be sold out. So it just, don't put sold out, just change the price and keep it up there. That's all you got to do. It's just a bad look when you say sold out and put the big, sticker on it on the website. And then, like you said, 6 hours later, a couple hours later, it's back, but now $20 something, $30 something more expensive.
I remember there used to be I never attended anything like this, but like rave parties and stuff where the first 500 tickets were $25, the second 500 were $50 and so on. And if that's what they're doing, that's fine. But they were honest about it. It created the urgency. They didn't just lie and say, oh, it's sold out. We're out of inventory, but nonetheless, yes. I bought mine for $100 on the third time before it sold out again. Oh, all right. Willikers. All right. Let's give a shout out to our Prestige members. I want to give a big shout out to Miss Mandy, 1983, Lil Mac, 21, Brian Hauser, 330T, Aaron Bort, Jacob Fix, Damon Barnes, Dakota Cole, Eric Grau, Dustin Jackson, Songstress Miku, Medic 302, Eastern Coaster guys and girls, Justin Y, Mike Garrett, the Galaxy B-Boy. Thank you guys so much for supporting Tower Topics at the highest level. That's the prestige level. If you want to be involved in Tower Topics, there's a link in the description. Members get early access to the videos, exclusive content, exclusive live streams, and some tiers even get some free stuff. So hit that link if you want to be on board.
So Ryan, one of my favorite places on Earth, Dollywood, has released its 2026 operating calendar. It features more operating days to give pass holders even greater value. So every year they keep adding more days to the calendar. The park will also debut next year a $50 million attraction. It's a night flight expedition. But Dollywood not only putting their calendar out there, but also releasing the date runs for all of the different events, even introducing new events on top of the returning events. When do you think, uh, you know, we'll see Kings Island release its calendar?
The over under is March 1st, and that'll be through Labor Day. I think that's when you'll see it. They'll announce opening day sometime this year or early next year, but unless it's pushed back later, then they'll try to non-disclose
but you
that.
don't think we'll see the the transparency, with the full calendar, with all of the events, everything that you get with your season pass, or if you buy a ticket, or you're going to stay on property, whatever it's going to be, what you're getting the date we're recording here. So it's going to drop on October
Halloween.
31st, this episode, Halloween. So we know on Halloween exactly what next year looks like at Dollywood, what the events are, when those events are going to run, what the park hours are, everything. It's out there, it's been published. But if we don't know, and you said, when did you say we would see the calendar?
March 1st.
So March 1st. Do you think we'll see all the events for the year on March 1st?
We'll see the events after the park opens for the season.
So as someone that has a season pass to Kings Island, leave us a comment, make your prediction. When do you think Kings Island will release the calendar? And would you like to see a little more clarity? Would you like to know, as you're, now renewing your pass or thinking about buying a pass, maybe you have to travel in from, outside the market, you have to spend a few days in a hotel, whatever it might be, for your planning purposes. Would you like to see more clarity, in terms of what the events are? What are those runs? What are the hours? Everything. Would you like to see that now, or is March 1st okay for you?
Yeah. If they release the calendar now, first of all, I don't think that they know what their calendar is going to be. I don't think they know what their events are going to be. I don't think they know what opening day is going to be. I don't think they're hiding this. I think that nobody knows what's going on in that company right now. But the big fear, though, is that if they have a limited calendar, let's say they're not open till 10 during the week, that's going to affect season pass sales. So they're doing this MVP sales to make you buy it blind. That could be part of the strategy. I don't think it is this time, because I honestly don't think they know. But
yeah, I can tell you that they pretty much knew what the calendar was going to look like, outside of maybe if there's some park sellouts in September. They always wanted to make sure that they got that locked up before they released the fall calendar. But end of August, early September, they pretty much knew what the calendar for the next year was going to look like, and that would get shared around for planning purposes for everybody. And then, you would start to, on your marketing plan, and that you would start to mark in, when the different events and that were going to be. But, after the merger, it's a whole world right now. And I'm sure it's not, not as transparent and everything internally as it, and not as well known as it would have been, 3, 4, 5 years ago.
I think that they know when opening day is. I think they know when they're gonna cut down the hours, like for the August hours. I'm not sure if they know if they're going to be closed at 10 and do fireworks every night. I think that might be a big hang up for them. I think that there are people pushing for it, and there's people above them that are saying no.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, the cost cutting, that we've seen since the merger took place, it's not over. I mean, there's going to be more of it. So we'll see.
Yeah. So now that we're leaving you on a bummer, let's talk about the Vortex and Firehawk.
Yeah. We got the end of October every year. It kind of two notable Kings Island roller coasters, were retired at the end of the month. October 27th, 2019, the Vortex gave its final rides, marking the end of an era that spanned over 3 decades. And then October 28th, 2018, just the year before the Vortex was retired, Firehawk took its final flights. It originally debuted as X-Flight on May 26, 2001 at Worlds of Adventure in Aurora, Ohio, formerly known as Jaga Lake and all that. This Vekoma Flying Dutchman model was relocated to Kings Island in 2007. After 11 seasons at the park, it was time to say goodbye to this attraction.
Yeah, so I had a weird relationship with both of them. I Firehawk was a cool ride, but the whole thing of like the no loose article thing made it so I would hardly ever ride it because I essentially had to buy a locker. I remember the last day of the season. I guess it would be October 28th, 2018, so that's what we have written down. But it was cold, so it didn't operate consistently at the time. I didn't end up riding it, which is okay because I didn't really have like a ton of nostalgia for it. The Vortex, on the other hand, October 27th, 2019, I actually made the conscious decision not to ride it that day. And it was simply because a couple days before, I got the best ride of my life on the Vortex. I mean, I had like retired from riding it for several years where maybe I would ride it once a season if somebody was in town and they wanted to do it or whatever. I got this glorious ride with airtime and the inversions, and it wasn't rough. And I kind of wanted that to be my last memory of the Vortex, so I opted out of it.
Yeah, I chose not to ride on the last day. Took a lot of pictures,
Mhm.
but chose not to ride the last day because I wanted my ride count to stay at 1,199.
That's fair. Couldn't possibly go up to the 1200s, but
Well, there was somebody that had, a little bit more than that, and that year I intentionally, only rode it a few times just to get it to the 1199 number because I wanted this individual to go down. Once I knew that the Vortex wasn't going to be coming back, it was going to be retired. I wanted this individual to be able to, proclaim that they had more rides on it than anybody.
that's very noble of you. But I ask you listeners, do you miss Vortex and Firehawk? And leave us a comment of your favorite memory. And do you still it's funny because nobody really talked about Vortex until it's gone, you know? And now that it's gone, it was everybody's favorite ride. A little bit of that was Son of Beast, but let's not be silly here. But leave us a comment on your thoughts with that. Um, Don, do you know we have an online store?
I've heard some
You've heard.
rumblings about that.
Yeah. And you can get things like this Tower Topics t-shirt. You can get hats, mugs. You can get I Hate Tower Topics stuff. Just want to let everybody know it's store.towertopics.com. That's store.towertopics.com for all your Tower Topics merchandising needs. All right. We'll be right back with the listener questions. First listener question, D from Oregon. D said, why did the Reds Hall of Fame Grill put in the claim that Johnny Bench was the greatest catcher of all time when Yogi Berra was much better catcher in terms of stats and championships?
Well, we certainly have I'm going to say a Yankees fan there in Oregon, if they're going to say that Yogi Berra was the better catcher than Johnny Bench. Now, statistically, batting average, we've got Yogi Berra at 285, Johnny Bench 267, home runs very close, 358 for Berra, 389 for Bench, runs batted in. Berra had the edge, 1430 to 1376. He had more hits, 2150 to 2048 for Bench. World Series wins, not even close. Berra was a member of 10 World Championship teams with the Yankees. Bench with 2 with the Reds. Appearances in the World Series, 14 for Berra, 4 for Johnny Bench. MVP awards, 3 for Berra, 2 for Bench. But what this doesn't show with these stats that you're displaying there, Ryan, this comparison is defensively, Bench was better than Yogi Berra. He was better at calling the game. He was better at working with the pitchers, being able to frame pitches, to get those extra strikes, base runners. I mean, Bench had a cannon, for an arm. Nobody was running on him, much better arm than Yogi Berra. So just defensively, Bench redefined, what a catcher, looked like behind the plate. He was the first one to put, his throwing arm, his hand behind his back. So he wasn't getting fouled, balls off his hand and breaking his thumb and things like that other catchers were dealing with. But just a lot of things with him, defensively, he was just, in a different league than Yogi Berra. At the plate, Berra might have a slight edge, just maybe a little bit better overall hitter than Johnny Bench, but defensively, not even close. And that's the number one job of a catcher anyway, is to work with your pitching staff and control the running game. Bench did that better than anybody.
Looks like, Corky Miller wasn't a great player, but he was great working with, he was a better coach than player, and he was behind the plate doing that. But
a great defensive catcher.
Yeah, well, Yogi Berra was only famous for saying stupid things like "it ain't over till it's over" and stuff like that. That's the only reason that dude's remembered. Come on. All right, totally kidding on that. Marty from Newtown, Ohio. I've always debated if it's Newtown or Newton.
Newtown.
Newtown is the way it looks
Newtown.
like.
I lived down that way in Anderson Township, so I was pretty close to that area.
Okay, so you speak the lingo. All right.
I do.
He said, I guess this is directed towards you. Do you even love Kings Island anymore? I subscribe to Theme Parks by Dawn, expecting a high dose of Kings Island stories, but instead, I've got an endless parade of Dollywood this and Holiday World that, with a little Disney and Universal mixed in. What happened? Why turn your back on the park that built your following and fed you for so many years?
Well, I appreciate the question. My interest and passion for Kings Island, it's as strong as ever. It's the park that started me on my journey, in the industry. Kings Island will, it's always going to have a place in my heart. There's no denying that. But that said, I rely heavily on analytics, to guide the content that I produce for Theme Parks by Dawn. The data, however you want to pronounce that, shows that my readers, they're engaging more with the stories that I published about Dollywood, Holiday World, some other parks. Kennywood does very well. Camden Park, whenever I've done anything about that, whenever I mention them, does well, whether that's, through the blog or on social media. So that's where I focus my, much of my attention, in terms of what I'm going to cover on Theme Parks by Dawn is what the analytics say, and it says that, I get much more engagement. People are more interested when I'm writing about Dollywood, Holiday World, those other parks. Some of that may be because that's not a place that a lot of my, readers maybe have gone. It's new to them. So they're going to be more interested. I don't know, but it's just what that information says. Kings Island's always going to be in the mix in terms of the coverage, what my audience is going to, be served on Theme Parks by Dawn. But what the audience is most interested in, what they're most interested in reading, that is going to be, has been, is now, is always going to be, where the content is built around. So it has nothing to do with any lost love for Kings Island or anything. It just has to do is that's what my readers are most interested in.
Yeah. But there's also a lot of more of the same at Kings Island where, Holiday World, they did the thing with the dinos and stuff while we had Tricks and Treats again this year, Well,
that's part of it too, is that, there's always something going on, Dollywood. I mean, there's all kinds of things. They've got just events after events after events, and they get all these different awards and things, so there's a lot more to write about there, Holiday World, like you said, the dinos, for the fall, that was something new to write about. The drone show, has been, relatively new for them, new food items, for them. Water park, 3 of the, best water coasters out there, so they're kind of the pinnacle of water parks. So there's a lot to write about, out there. So that plays into it as well, so when you're rolling out the same things, year after year, or it's a real small scale thing, you're not going to be as inclined to write about it if it's just something that, like take the Food and Wine Festival. It's not as immersive as what Busch Gardens Williamsburg has. So things like that play into it as well too, is that, that's a full scale, throughout the park type of an event. And maybe what Kings Island was doing was confined to pretty much just the Tower Gardens area, So it's going to be a lot more to write about for Busch Gardens Williamsburg than Kings Island. So you have to take your fandom hat off, when you're doing those kind of things as a journalist, and you have to kind of write where the stories are. And it's been those other parks more so than Kings Island. Now, Kings Island, like I said, will be in the mix. There'll be other things to write about. I'm sure, with Phantom Theater, opening Nightmare. There's going to be a lot of that in the spring, so leading up to its opening, to having experienced it for the first time, how it compares to the original. There's going to be a lot to work with, going into next year. So I think you'll see that balance shift a little bit because they'll have something new and really exciting to talk about that the readers are going to be very interested in.
Scott from Morrow, Ohio. He's got a two-part question. He said, Ryan and Don, do you think Kings Island would get any flat rides from Six Flags America? If so, what would you like to see come to the park? Part two is, if CGA were to close for good and in this off season, what would you like to see come to Kings Island from that park?
Well, I'll start with part two first because it's the easiest. I'd love to see the double stack carousel. Would be something I'd love
my
to see.
answer.
Would it come to King? But that's not going to happen. That's not leaving the state of California. That carousel will end up somewhere in nearby, somewhere. I don't think Kings Island's going to get any flat rides from Six Flags America. A lot of those rides are old. It's hard to say what kind of shape they're even really in. I don't know how that would really, any of those would really dramatically improve Kings Island's flat ride lineup. With the cost of, dismantling it there, transporting it to, the Kings Island and all that, it would only cost a little bit more to get a brand new model, something similar. There's other things out there that would be a little more exciting from a flat ride perspective as well, too, that, Kings Island could get and add to the park. So I don't see anything from that park ending up at Kings Island.
We discussed the roundup. I don't know what they call it there. They're to come back as Halley's Comet.
Oh, I'd love to see it, but I don't see it happening.
It's been SPNO all season or most of the season.
Yeah,
I just don't think they're going to fix it.
No, that's like the condition of some of those rides. It's hard to say. A lot of them are older, not reliable. But that would be one just because of the nostalgia piece of it. You bring it back and call it Halley's Comet. You can almost put it in the exact same spot, that it was before. So that would be kind of cool to see.
Where was it before? He told me, but I forgot. Halley's Comet.
Halley's Comet. It was in it's in the Coney Mall. There's like a center, like planter kind of thing out near where the Kmart building is.
Okay.
So
that would be a cool spot.
Yeah, like near Jukebox Diner, down that way. But there's like in the middle, like all the little plants and things right in the middle.
Yeah. And if you've got your own questions, you can email them to us at hosts, HOSTS, at towertopics.com. That's hosts at towertopics.com. You don't want to send an email, you can send a text or a voicemail to 513-399-7538. That's 513-399-7538. If you send us a text, we'll read it. If you send us a voicemail, we might play it on the air.
And with this being our final episode in October, we'd like to thank our sponsor this month, Land of Illusion.
Land of Illusion has been such a great partner to us. I really appreciate them partnering with us. But here's a word from our sponsor.
Feel the pulse of terror at the nation's #1 rated haunt. Head to America's most visited Scream Park. Land of Illusion, the ultimate haunted destination. 6 bone-chilling attractions. All-night fun with a full bar and a food court to fuel your adventure. Will you conquer the scares? Land of Illusion. Get tickets now at landofillusion.com.
And they're open this weekend, the final nights, just like Halloween Haunt is about to end. Same thing with Land of Illusion on its Scare Park. But they'll have a lot of fun things to do during the winter.
They will. Hopefully we'll hear more from them. I'm Ryan Sir. That's Don Helbig. And this is Tower Topics.